If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option, as Sori says. 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. 125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at vinsori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy a merch indeed.
A child shall lead them.
A child shall lead them.
Okay, Trivium Fest underway for the big homies Stacy and Fernando for their anniversary.
Fernando.
Song up is Trivium-Bleed Into Me. So let's check this one out.
And this was Fernando's selection?
No, Fernando picked the first one, and then Stacy came in and was like, "Let's make a fest out of it."
Sure.
Songs, to my knowledge, were picked by Stacy.
Okay, all right, Stacy, I see how it is. Bleed Into Me trivia. Let's go. Do you hear anything?
Through that?
No.
Bleed into me, an ounce of your empathy. Eyes locked, you can see a ghost on invisible city. Bleed into me, those feelings you're harboring. The silence says it all. Tragedy, the look before the fall. Struggles and dreams mix into one. The grim rituals have only begun. No use in leaving, I'll drift off before you are gone. Before you are gone. As it bleeds into me, that it's seeking for you. Tell them the story, tell them the truth. As it bleeds into me, that it's seeking for you. Tell them the story, tell them the truth. Let it bleed into you. Lay it down. Yeah. Bleed into me. A bit of your apathy. Cast aside, forget me. Another disappears in the city. Struggles and dreams mix into one. The grim rituals have only begun. No use in leaving, I'll drift off before you are gone. Before you are gone. As it bleeds into me, that it's seeking for you. Tell them the story, tell them the truth. As it bleeds into me, that it's seeking for you. Tell them the story, tell them the truth. Let it bleed into you. it bleeds into me, let it sink in for you. As it bleeds into me, let it sink in for you. Tell them the story, tell them the truth. As it bleeds into me, let it sink in for you. Tell them the story, tell them the truth. Let it bleed into you. Bleed it down, yeah. Bleed it down,
Ah, yes,
Another
Pinky.
heavy one. That was really
Yes.
thick sounding.
That was pretty deep. Lyrically,
Yeah. Yeah.
it reminded me of the work we did.
Oh.
But go ahead.
Yeah. Yep.
What do you got?
Well, it's interesting. So usually I don't do this, but I read the bottom of what it was about, and so you were right. That is essentially what he was talking about. Because they get to tour all over the place, so he was just seeing people in different situations. He saw somebody shooting up on the train or the bus or something like that, some heroin, and he was just thinking of how, like, the pandemic and stuff, like, all of a sudden you notice jobs you didn't notice before, like the grocery store workers that were still going to work when everybody was terrified of being out in public, and you know, obviously the hospitals and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And you heard some horrible stories of like we would ask them directly, the cashiers, like, how is it like working during the pandemic and stuff, and some of them were like, people directly sneeze on me, and I couldn't believe that was happening. Like, how rude can you be?
Can you guys hear us okay? Said Mike's dead. But it's saying that they can't hear from you, which doesn't make sense. Can 1, 2, 3. Yeah, can you hear yourself?
Hello, testing. We can hear you just fine. I don't know about mine yet. I haven't started talking.
Okay, so we're good, but Sori's mic. That's so weird.
Oh, yeah, it definitely sounds like mine is off. I'm just like far and echoey. Okay, I could try turning up that. Does that help at all?
Yours is loud, hers is off. That is so strange.
I mean, it helped a little bit.
Whose
when I
fault is it
turned
now?
that up. Now we're moving the gain to where they said was a bad spot yesterday, but it sounds echoey.
Oh, you're hearing yourself now?
I was hearing it before. Here, listen, and you'll hear what it sounds like. It's kind of like, I don't know, like I'm in a can or something.
Say so.
Yeah, it's like I'm talking into a can or something. It's kind of
Good. I'm glad. Now you get to deal with the tinny vocals. Let's see.
somebody gets worse and worse at what they do the longer they do it. The audio is, and they were complaining about the audio. But I looked at it.
Let me see your mic.
The audio was like what they were making it seem like. I was like, you want the headphones?
Yeah. Just keep talking.
I didn't think that the audio was like how bad they were complaining. But sometimes people do that because they want like people to notice them, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I tried to see if the person had a channel."
Yeah, we're just it's a little tinny, but it's all good. Okay.
So anyway, so that was kind of that theme. So it made sense that you said what we used to do. Like that crew that we were a part of.
Yeah, but yeah, that is an interesting take though. Like to be a person that tours all across the country, because you end up seeing. I bet you end up seeing just a lot of really crazy. not crazy like, oh my God, I can't believe that. But you see a lot of people in different circumstances because, you know, you're out on tour, you're seeing the world, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think that when you go to different areas, you're able to see, like, some things are just the same with all human beings. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And I think that that's a unique experience to have, to be able to just travel all over the place. Like, obviously, like, you've done, you know, a lot more traveling than I've done. But the little bit of traveling that we've been able to do together, I find it extremely fascinating to see that cultures are different. Not even just like, just like here in California, and, you know, just how things are. I don't know. It's just very interesting.
Yeah. But when he said tell them the story or tell them the truth, like, I found a lot of people when we were, because we were in the gutter of wherever we were, or whatever you want to call it. But I just found that people didn't necessarily want a handout or help per se, but a lot of it was just to sit down and listen to them explain where they were coming from.
Yeah, because so we ended up helping or working with, you know, becoming friends with a lot of people that were homeless, and it was really interesting because I guess before actually, like, being around homeless people, I thought they were kind of, like, good with it. You know what I mean? Like, or I assumed that you would get yourself
You
out
thought
of the situation.
homeless people were good with it?
Well, like, because they didn't look super motivated sitting on the side of the road. You know what I mean? Like I'm never going to be good with sleeping in a cardboard box on the side of the road. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get out of that situation. And they weren't. They were just like, well, let me just wrap myself in a blanket and crawl into this box. You know what I'm saying? Like, so to me, I was like, well, maybe they've accepted that. Like, or maybe, you know, maybe there's, like, some really bad drug habit that, you know, I just didn't know what it was. And you just see these people and you don't, and I never talked to, you know, homeless people on the side of the road. And we were really, the culture that I kind of came up in was, like, never give those people money because they're going to use it for drugs. Give them food instead. So I was fine with doing something like that. But then you were actually the game changer on that. No, I did talk to some of them, but I never asked them, like, their backstory because I kind of felt like people wouldn't want to tell you. But people, I don't know, you just start talking to people just start telling you everything. It's a very amazing thing. Anyway, like, you know, there was this, you know, one family where the father, it was a couple, and they had a couple of kids, and he was a fireman, and his wife ended up getting cancer, and then he was working, and the floors collapsed beneath him when he was in the building, and when they collapsed, obviously, like, his back, the bones in his went crushing up inside, and so he was never the same after that.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, the way that he was talking about how he used to work, it was extremely relatable to how my father works. And then I noticed his shoes were the same type of, like, work boots that my dad wears. And all of a sudden, like, he became, like, such a relatable person to me because when my mother went through a phase where she was extremely sick and I thought she was going to die. And I thought, wow, imagine if all that stuff had happened all at the same time and we didn't have, like, family to help us out or whatever. Like, what would have happened? And he didn't look like he wanted to be in the situation that he was in, but it looked like one thing after the next just kind of kept happening, and he kind of would find himself there in that place. And so just kind of hearing from people and hearing their stories and realizing that it's not like somebody woke up one day and says, hey, I'm going to be homeless, or I don't want to work.
Yeah.
You know, the more we talk to them, the more that we realize that once you become homeless, you're carrying everything of value on you. And every other homeless person and crook out there knows that. And so when they would go, they would avoid the shelters, because once you go to a shelter, it's very easy for somebody to rob you because they know that everything that you have is either in your pockets or on your backpack. And then once your paperwork gets stolen, you now can't get a job because you don't have any identifying paperwork. And so to be able to get, I don't know if you guys have ever gotten like a name change or you have to get your license. Like, It's freaking impossible. You get down there and they're like, well, we're gonna have to see your birth certificate. You're like, my birth certificate? You know, like there's all these different things like that you need to be able to get one document. And so it's impossible. And a lot of them are not in their hometown, so they can't go down to the town office. Plus they don't have the $25 or whatever it is to get the original document. So it really is like just like this situation where it's just one problem after the next.
It's a cycle.
Yeah, it really is. So,
yeah. Which obviously, I think that's probably the most direct, you know, because he's talking about empathy. I think that's where the whole bleed into me thing comes in, where it's like, it's interesting is people like don't internalize, you know, stuff. Like, so if somebody's saying something bad to you or whatever, you know, I'll tell Johan, don't internalize that. Don't take that within yourself.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that emotion is something that should not be internalized. We should internalize the pain of other people. And I think that's where the bleed into me comes, because then it gives you the motivation to help. But on a relationship side, this is also a very, very important principle, because you really lose track sometimes as to the fact that your partner is somebody that you should also show empathy to. You should also, you know, feel sympathy for, et cetera, et cetera. And they're also the person whose shoes you should fill, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think obviously the big picture thing works out a lot, but it's something where I see that a lot sometimes as couples, where it's like, they're, especially like in the heat of battle, forget it. You know, like, yeah, people, you know, you don't empathize necessarily with your person in the heat of battle, when that would change a lot of the conflicts. If that could happen, at least, you know, not necessarily who's right or wrong or who needs to apologize, but just overall, like, okay, this is how you felt, understanding the other person's view, not necessarily agreeing with it, but letting them bleed into you in the sense that, because it's funny, like if a person's hurt, generally, if one of your folks is hurt and they come to you like, oh, this hurt me, a hammer fell on my foot, and you sit there and empathize. The problem is when it's, you're the person that upset me, you're the person that hurt me, then our first instinct is defense and not empathy. So if our person came to us, if anybody in the world hurt them, we'd be like, oh, that's terrible, blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of, where is he, you know, type of situation. But the point is, if it was the other 8 billion people on the planet that hurt our mate, then we wouldn't think defensively at first. Our first instinct would be to empathize. But when it just so happens that we're the ones that did it, then the empathy gets pushed back and you go into defense mode. So I think even like, if you applied this song to relationships, it's also another tell the story, tell the truth. Like if you came at relational conflicts or issues with that paradigm, then obviously in an ideal world things would go a lot smoother, whatever you want to call it. So that's the other thing I was thinking about. I was listening to the song. Obviously, I was thinking about the folks that we had the opportunity to work with. Yeah. But I was also thinking about that too. Like, and like all great art, it could be applied all over the place, and it's pretty challenging.
Yeah,
This is interesting.
That's an interesting thought.
After getting my psychology degree, I can't get upset with any one of the situations because I now see where the behavior is coming from and why. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the biggest things is just like, that's kind of the mode that I've been in, is like trying to stay in, which is more of like trying to understand. And really, I try to understand myself. Like I invest a lot of time in trying to understand why I am the way I am with certain things. But yeah, I agree, Lisa. Like if you look into any sort of psychology or whatever, you start to see that a lot of the things people do are not things they're doing on purpose to be whatever. They're just doing it because they're reacting to trauma, you know, a crazy upbringing, bad thought patterns they inherited from their parents, you know, the list goes on. And then it becomes less and less likely that you're going to have an uncharitable, you know, judgmental view of them. But anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed the song. Pretty freaking challenging. What'd you give it?
That was a lot to take in. What did I think about the song?
This is so weird.
Well, it's because everything that you just said, like, I noticed that when we're in conflict, because, so I just had like it should have been a conflict between me and someone that I'm close to, but this person all their life won't engage in, the only type of conflict that this person engages in is they'll yell at you, and that's the end of the conversation. And there's no dialogue, there's no discussion. But now, obviously, like, that person is not going to engage that way anymore with me, so there is no discussion, and it's just like just quiet, and like pretending like something just didn't happen that did happen.
Yeah.
And it's because I've been so far out of that culture, it's so bizarre to me now. I'm like, I tried to push the person to say something. Tell me what's going on, because obviously you're hurt. Tell me. But they won't talk about it. And then, like, I realized, you know, by what you just said, and also by our last engagement with each other, I realized that, and I don't know how to stop doing it, but like inside, when you're saying something, I'll feel very emotional because all of a sudden, it'll be out of nowhere. I don't even know what makes me, because like at first you're right, I'm in like, I'm defending myself mode, and I'm trying to like, you know, protect myself from whatever is upsetting you about me. And so I'm in defense mode, but all of a sudden somewhere in the conversation, it switches, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, he's actually trying to tell me how he feels. Like, that's what's happening here. And then I get extremely emotional, but once I hit that point, I like turn into a rock wall. Like, I don't show that emotion at all. And I feel it so much inside that I turn like stoic outside. And I don't know, and I've never been like that, but I've also never been engaged in disagreements with somebody or arguments with somebody before. This is literally the only relationship that's happened with. Like, I haven't done that with somebody where.
Wow.
So I realize that I'm doing it, but then by that point I can't, like, I don't know how to break my own rock wall to be like.
Yeah, I mean it happens over time. Like, you know, it's learned behavior, which is good and bad. It's good in the sense that, okay, if I learn it, I can unlearn it. It's bad in the sense that, yeah, but if I've been doing something, the same thing, and then I realize that I'm to change, it's not going to happen overnight. So,
yeah, but I haven't been doing that for 32 years. I haven't been engaging in arguments for 32 years.
That's my point. So it's going to be very hard to like make those adjustments as to how to have good conflicts and how to communicate well and all the rest of it. And you know, that's. I mean, I don't encourage fighting, but that's why I say, like, you know, I think young couples should argue early and often so that they can right size themselves and learn those skills. But we'll see. And that's another reasons why, you know, I won't necessarily jump in when the kids are going at each other, because they just need to learn the terms of negotiating and how to make that work and compromise and listening and all that. Like, yeah. None of us are trained to do this stuff. Yeah. So, anyway, I really like the song. It's a 9.2 for me.
Oh, it was a 9.1 for me.
There you are, dear listener. More music is on the way. Happy anniversary. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone.